Sorry about
Okay,
that.
hello and welcome to the January 5th, 2023 architecture meeting for Ortelius. So Steve, I thought that maybe to kick this meeting off, we might want to kind of summarize our meeting with Red Hat since not everybody attended. I think, and it'd be great to get Karam up to speed on what's happening as well, and just have a general discussion about what everybody thought about what Red Hat's doing and the use of their database.
Yeah. So Red Hat has they're proposing a new project called Ortelius. And I'll drop the link on Discord. Really isn't a link. They haven't published anything yet, so it's really hard to kind of like share information about it. But I'll drop the PDF that we got from them around the ideas that they have going on. Basically, what they want to do is be the Ortelius wants to be the registry, the artifact registry for all types of artifacts. So whether you're going to be a npm module, a Python module, a Docker image, it doesn't really matter. It wants to be the go-to place to have all the different types of packages stored in it. And because of that, they want to build it on top of the OCI 1.1 registry specs. And they're actually looking at either extending the registry specs or asking the OCI specs to be updated to accommodate these other types of objects other than like Docker images, for example. So basically what ends up happening is the OCI registry ends up being the database for all of the information around the artifact. And when they do that, they would be including SBOM data as part of the artifact. So you'd have the artifact and the corresponding SBOM data kind of associated in that. It would be an immutable database. So, you're going to get the versioning on that front. And it's hard to tell with the spec and how they have it going, but they have the concept of a component, and then they have a concept of a product. The product is equivalent to the Ortelius application, and I'm not sure how they are going to be, if they're going to be storing that in the OCI database as well, or if that's going to be like a separate database. It's hard to tell on the architecture front. The folks at that team at Red Hat looked at Ortelius and basically said that we could get rid of our Postgres database and use their OCI registry in place of it. The part that I found that when we're talking to them, in order to make this work, they have to change the package manager. So you have to change npm, you have to change the PyPy stuff in order to get things to upload. Instead of going to PyPy, it would have to, when you did your Twine upload of your package, you'd have to replace that Twine upload with a different call or a plugin to make it go over to the OCI database. So that was one of the things I noticed, is that they're going to have to, in order to make this work long term, they're going to actually have to change every single package manager that's out there, which I think is a huge lift. Especially in the open source world, people can't agree on some basic stuff around SBOMs, and I don't know how they're going to agree on how to change the package managers and things like that. But being Red Hat, and because they have a big reach, and they're able to control a lot of these programs like npm and Twine and Docker and stuff like that on a Red Hat Linux install, they may be able to do that going that route. So if you're a Red Hat customer, you may be able to get this benefit automatically as part of it. We'll have to see how it plays out on that side.
So let's just stop right there. So for those of you who were on the call, do you think, did Steve get it right?
Well, I would hesitate to suggest Steve got it wrong.
No.
I don't think Steve gets much wrong.
No, I don't think he does either.
But the thought that I had was Red Hat, open source doesn't mean steamrolling everybody else that's in your way. So it may be that they need to adapt to, sort of other existing solutions that are out there and provide some value over the top.
That was my initial concern when I looked at their document. And then I noticed when we talked about it, they went right to the plugin screen that they have. So I think that they're realizing that they need to do something like that. But I think that the problem with the package managers that Steve just outlined is the area that is probably the biggest concern. We still have to find out if that's the case, if that's what their expectation is. Anybody else get a sense that would be an issue? Is Steve seeing it right, or is there potentially something that we're not understanding?
No, I actually just learned something from how you just summarized it now, because I was a little bit lost. I know it was like a central package manager, but I didn't realize I would have to change all the other package managers to fit their solution. That's a pretty radical change.
Yeah, and then you layer on top of that things like SigStore. SigStore, wants to sign the packages and keep track of the immutable signature of who created the package. So, and SigStore starting to gain some traction on that front. I haven't looked at the project lately, but I know like Ruby Gems was using SigStore. So there's going to be a lot more adoption on the SigStore side around the package managers. And I think the concept on that front, I'd have to look at the architecture for SigStore, but I think in the SigStore case that they're still uploading to their native registry, just that they're recording additional information over on the SigStore side around being able to verify what was uploaded to the native registry.
And Steve, is there a way that Ortelius could just read from those registries and bring the data in without asking anybody to change the way they're doing things, kind of like we're doing?
Yeah, that's a good question.
That could be an interesting solution for them. I have not, we didn't get into that, but that's one thing we should ask them on our next call is why aren't they just reading in everybody's database out there and creating their single OCI registry that way? That would seem like the path of least resistance.
But I remember he mentioned, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Sergio.
Yeah, yes, I was remember that he said like there is no trouble about just integrating to other like sort of information. So they can skip some part of the way they are doing. And yeah, I think it's if we just mention some kind of definition for our repository and I don't know, the way the information goes back, I think it's pretty easy to them to integrate and have like more input, because at the end they want to like consume a lot of information. I think the way they're finally going to do it is not important. The important thing is having this recollection of data. And yeah, I think it's a big thing that usually the solution or the proposal that you're going to put in place to be like get more people involved on that need to be like really frictionless. So there is a lot of things at the road they are going to change to make that possible. I see the document and I dig out a little bit inside, and is this a proposal? So it's a really early. It's more about the vision, about they want to accomplish. And right now, like, I don't know, the inclusion in PIP on NPM and stuff like that, I think is just like sampling and mentioning that can be possible to do it. So, but it's not relevant that doing it in that way. So yeah, if they are, I don't know, start looking everything as a source of information and work more focused on integrate that, I think there is a lot of beneficial for an extended people, teams that can collaborate and not saying I'm going to attach for this proposal. But I think I'm trying to mean that there is a lot of things are going to change over time. I think this year is really early, and there is a lot of possibility that we can exchange information and having like both sides benefit about on this proposal.
Yeah,
The-
and
the-
go ahead, Tony.
So the other thing to keep in mind is, as early as this is, lots of projects get started, not necessarily lots of projects come through to conclusion.
Mhm.
And something you guys may not, all of you know, is Red Hat has actually just gone through their first round of layoffs ever, I think.
Yes, I think so. I totally agree with that.
And they've done the thing IBM does a lot. They brought in Boston Consulting Group to go through and go, you're good, you're not good. So projects will undoubtedly get looked at a little bit for ROI versus cost contribution. So all I'm saying is we shouldn't be engaged in support and all that. Just, this may or may not go somewhere.
Yeah.
So there's basically, you're saying there's a risk that project might get killed, and then we'd be sitting there with an Emporius database to support.
Well,
Yes,
and one of the and one of the things from the Ortelius point of view is we have always had a very long arm away from managing the artifacts themselves. So managing the binary themselves was something that we don't want to do. It's very costly to manage those, and it's a major headache. I mean, you have companies like Sonatype and JFrog and, Armory, Docker, Docker Hub. You got Quay, you got Google, there's all these folks in that business that we don't want to go there. We just want to be able to consume and point to that data that exists. So I think from an architectural standpoint, I think we want to be able to consume information that's stored in the OCI registry, but I don't think we should make it our primary database. And that's the same thing like with the blockchain. I don't think the blockchain is going to be our primary database. We will have to have a secondary database, a graph database like Rango or something like that, that is going to give us the search capability that we need to do the associations, all that dependency relationships. If you're just looking at JSON file, it's just going to be impossible, especially when you're looking at millions of them.
So one outfit I've been working with on another open source project is Terminus DB.
And what's that one?
It's a graph database out of Dublin. They're
Okay.
very good, been very easy to work with. So, and if it gets there, connecting you guys would be quite easy.
Yeah, well, definitely. We haven't really decided on a graph database at this point. We've been poking around with the Rango DB just because it looked like it was easy to use. But if you could drop the link in somewhere, we'll take a look.
The other guy that knows their software real well, who I think you at least, Tracy, know, and Steve, you may, is Andrew Padilla.
Sure. Yeah.
But I'll put the link to Terminus in the chat.
Yeah. And I think when we look at the data that we're going to need to associate together, we're going to have to approach it from a federated standpoint of this. We're going to capture a snippet of information and then have a pointer to where to go get the rest of the information. I think that's the approach that we're gonna have to take in order to make all these dispersed locations and information. Because we'll need things from like SigStore, we'll need things from like Persia, we'll need things from Docker Hub. So that will be one thing that we'll have to look at. And you know, initially what we're talking about is storing the SBOM inside of as an NFT and the IPFS. And if the SBOM is over in the OCI registry, that's fine. We just point to it. You know, it doesn't really matter to us. We just gotta make sure that we are able to make those relationships and if handle the case where something disappears. But it sounds like most of these databases are going to be immutable and things are going to stick around forever. So I think we'll be pretty safe on that front.
So the way I see it is that this particular group, the architecture side, really needs to have a pretty strong focus over the next couple of weeks on this potential Red Hat relationship. It could be a good one for us. It could be something that we don't want to get involved in for the reasons that Steve just described. But this group should make a recommendation to the governing board. Having if we think about go-to-market opportunity, working with Red Hat would be very good for us, even if we take some hits on the direction that we've always sort of said we don't want to be involved in storing, being an artifact repository. I think that's the correct direction, quite honestly. And I think we should have that discussion with Red Hat and see if there's something that we can do to persuade them to maybe not go that direction. But I think that's what they have their heart set on, because I think one of the primary things they're wanting to solve, and I think it's an important one, is to have a central repository for all types of artifacts, right? Not just containers.
And where this came about, I kind of when the folks were introducing themselves, where it came about was they were trying to stand up basically a Docker npm environment in an air-gapped world. So when they did that, they were basically going out and copying repositories from the public domain, putting them on a USB drive, walking them over, plugging that into the air gap, and then reloading them. And that's a major headache. So instead of being able to just copy a single registry that's everything's all there, they had to go to all these different places and copy everything individually, and then stand those up on the internal side, on the air gap side, to make things work. And that and a lot of those tools don't play nice when they're in an air gapped environment. You know, like Maven wants to keep going out to all these different Maven repositories, even though you tell it, just look in my internal one. It has a mind of its own, you know. So I think that's where this is where the project started and the idea behind it. And it's a good idea. I just think at this point it's a heavy lift, and I think we can do integration into it, but I don't think at this point we want to go and replace our Postgres database with theirs.
Well, let's leave that as still something that we're concerned about, because the adoption and go-to-market opportunity would be if Emporius, as Tony points out, does survive Red Hat and continues forward. It's a really great opportunity for Ortelius, to be quite honest, even if we have to make some concessions, which that's the way the world works, right?
Yeah, and the way it sounded like, and we'll when we get a demo from them, we can ask more details, and that'll help us drive our decision. But it sounded like we can store just our metadata in the database and not necessarily store the artifact. So the artifact would come from there, plugging in stuff into the package manager. But besides that, we can possibly just store our schema and our metadata into their database.
And I believe that's what they're seeing. They're seeing it that I think that we have data and we've already done a lot of work that they have yet to do, that they want to be able to do, and that work's not done. So by us bringing our schema in to their database, they have both of the best of both worlds, right? Because they don't have to do all the other work that we've already done. But that doesn't mean, though, that you couldn't use whatever this end product would be, Ortelius or Emporius, or however, Ortelius using an Emporius backend. That doesn't mean that you would have to store the artifacts in order to use Ortelius.
That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah, that's what I think will happen. So on Tuesday, we have our follow-up call with them is, and I've made sure to invite Utkarsh because he somehow didn't get, he didn't get the invite. But on Tuesday, we will be seeing Emporius. We're going to go through what they have done. And then I'm going to schedule another follow-up call for us to have a deeper discussion about maybe some kind of a joint arrangement for to see if we did move over to their database, if we could continue working as we are now and not relying on the artifact being stored in their database, and somehow
Right.
create a connection when they have to.
So let's ask a couple questions. One is move over the same as support? As in it's an option. And the other is, one hates to be negative, but if Emporius goes away, what plugs in and Ortelius keeps running?
Right.
Right. And in my view right now, making some very general assumptions, that we would be using the same schema that we're using for the Ripple IPFS world, the XRPL ledger, that would be the same schema that we'd put into Emporius. So the thought would be that we could swap out or have both running at the same time. Because again, we had to think about federation. So we're going to have multiple places that we need to gather information from.
And
So we
keep
need
in
an
mind,
abstraction. I'm sorry, go ahead, Tracy.
well, keep in mind the things that we have to offer. We have an open source community. We're already incubating and the CD Foundation. So what probably we would ask them to do is to become a project under the Ortelius project. So Ortelius would have a project called Emporius. So if the Emporius team from Red Hat went away, the code wouldn't.
The other thing I was thinking is what this really says to me to support federation is we need a well-defined abstraction layer. And if we have that and say, great, Emporius is fine, we love you, but we have to work with this integration capability, and maybe we talk to them about reaching agreement on that abstraction layer.
Mm-hmm. I think they're going to look at us to drive that schema. From kind of what I gathered from the meeting, is they're looking at us to provide a lot of the schema around these relationships, because we have that expertise and they have the ideas, but I don't think they haven't gone down the road of implementing it yet.
So that's a good thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Agreement that Ortelius will deliver an abstraction layer. Good. Fitting it together is always the tricky thing.
Yeah.
In my experience, usually on these stages where there is like the beginning of a new product, the creation of a new product, usually I've been seeing it in the last years is you put like different components, you put your solution and you have like like roles inside of the solution. So usually that's the way to implement the whole solution with abstraction layers, because at the end you're going to say, I need a part that is, I don't know, going to authenticate. I need a part that is going to distribute. I need a part that is, so it's more like a role. And at the end, that leaves you to the engineering team that say, okay, this is not like, there is a better option, or maybe we can, and you just decouple it and put it something else, or put it in the and compete or compare. So at the end, yes, that's the best approach. And I think with they're trying to do, it is going to be like similar. The solution itself is not going to change much, because the whole world needed, like the federation information, the security, there is a lot of need in the inside of security, especially in the containers. So working in the same way, we are going to push to, and we are going to establish a model that is going to let us to integrate with different actors and just like connect it, see what is happening, see if it works, is it not work, and after that just try it with a new way that at the end we can fit in a whole solution. So they're going to do the same, and Paris I think is going to, it's I don't think it's going to be like it's work or not, it doesn't work. It's more like, okay, what kind of what is going to change, because it's more about a need more than the definition itself. So I think there is a lot of good opportunities that we can have a good match on the road, because again, they're just right now they have primarily saying that we are federating data, and I don't think they're really concerned about how to do it. It's just
Right.
trying to make it possible.
Yep, totally agree. So when's the meeting? The same time, or you're on mute?
Yeah, it's the same time, next Tuesday. I sent, everybody should have an invite. I sent it out to the entire Ortelius dev list.
All right, cool.
Can I ask a
I have not got
question?
the invites. So you're saying Tuesday, 10th of Jan, right?
Yep.
I don't have an invite.
You did get an invite, right?
No, I didn't get an invite.
Really? I
Yep.
wonder why. I
Really?
thought I sent it out to everybody.
Manchester United, that's why.
Did you get one, Sasha?
Oh yeah.
I see Sasha, me, Tony.
I gotta scoot to my next meeting, guys, so I'll talk
All
to you.
right.
Okay, thank you,
Yes,
Tony.
Tony.
I'll, Karam, I'm gonna make sure that you get it directly. I'm gonna put your name on it, but I'm also gonna send it out again to the whole community.
Sure. Thank you.
Am I wrong in thinking that Persia was solving that central package manager
That's
problem?
funny you say that, because Steve had the same response.
Because I'm
actually.
confused now why they want to do that when someone else is already doing it. That's what I
Yeah.
thought. I thought Persia was trying to solve that difficulty.
Persia is trying to handle the build step, and after you build it, you're going to then add it to their registry, but they're not changing the package manager.
So you keep the manage. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so you keep the same package manager,
Yeah.
basically, and so Persia is implementing all the different package manager formats instead of one standard one. They're going to go through and implement an NPM registry. They're going to go and implement a pipeline.
They're going to be like one of those plugs with a multi-plug adapter, keeping all the tools, but you can just move it around wherever you want, wherever you need it, right? Am I understanding correctly? Like decentralized?
Yeah, and it's decentralized through libp2p, so basically BitTorrent technology.
I thought it was quite cool.
So things are distributed that way on that front, and not necessarily what you would view as a single registry that's out there.
Yeah.
It still is a single registry, but it's a distributed registry.
Yeah, it's like containing all the different registries, but just in one on one like multi-plug. It's like a multi-plug
Yeah.
of registries.
Yeah, exactly.
Like an
So they're implementing all the different package manager protocols. So if you're on NPM, you're going to be able to go and connect to it, and it's going to understand the NPM protocol versus the PyPy protocol versus Docker and stuff like that, and Maven.
and you could host that in your own environment, right? And just be another decentralized kind of repo in a sense. It's like a repository, really. And it
Yeah,
could sync
so
from other repositories and so forth.
Yeah, so you could run a Persia node inside your company, and it would bring in to that node the pieces that those developers are using.
Mm.
So if that node doesn't have what you need, it'll go out and get it from the rest of the network and bring it locally.
That makes sense to me.
So that's where the speed comes into play, because it'll go out and grab what's already been out there in the network, but provide what you need to you as fast as possible.
It's like a cache.
Like Linux. Sounds like a Linux.
It sounds like a
repos.
CDN for package managers.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, I like the deploy have icon on the Persia.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah, it looks
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, it's cool.
On
Yeah,
the where?
On the Persia website, we've been helping
Oh,
them
yeah, that's
out.
great, right?
Yeah, I mean, I know these guys.
No, these guys, yeah.
And one of the things on that note, like I said, when we're talking about federating data, Persia doesn't have a UI to view what's in their database. And that's where Ortelius can step in and say, well, here's all the data that's in your database. And this is the information about it. And one of the things that Persia is there's not only that distributed registry or repository, but also there's the build consensus. So the the other part of that is to have, when I go and upload a new or do a PR against my open source jar file, for example, that jar file is then going to be built on, let's say, eight different companies from the same source. And if those 8 different companies all agree that they created the same thing, then it's good to go and be available to the network. If one of those companies or a couple of those companies basically said, nope, I got a different result, that means something in the process was hacked. And then it doesn't get published. So that's one of the benefits behind it is at the compile step that you're creating, secured binaries, basically.
Sounds like you're mining.
Yeah.
It's exactly, it's using the Aleph blockchain technology on consensus.
So could Ortelius lock into that? Sorry.
Yeah, so where we would be on the consuming side is after something gets published to the Persia network, we would then want to point to that and say this is available. And if your Docker image, when you do a Docker build, is including a certain version of the base image that Persia built, we'll be able to point and say this is the information about this base image. It was built over here by these people. It was signed by these folks. All that, provenance information and security information would be picked up by Ortelius from Persia.
Okay, and why can't Red Hat tap into Persia as their database instead of trying to invent their own database? Why can't they tap into like a node that they run?
Because they want to create a single standard and replace
okay.
all the package managers to use a single OCI standard.
I see.
It's 2 different views of the same problem.
Yeah. I like the Persia solution, to be honest.
And I don't know on the Red Hat OCI
so far.
I just don't know how if you just have one out there, you know, or if you're be able to have it distributed, you know, so for like you, Sasha, I don't know if they're gonna stand up an OCI registry and
No
AWS
worries.
South Africa.
No, exactly. And like if I'm working on with a massive client now, well, a client I've been on for like 2 years, and they have tens of thousands of people all over the world. They're not going to change their package managing for all their microservices around the world now to suit another product, right? They're not going to do it. There's no ways.
I mean, I think in Red Hat, this idea is more about having a place to federate the data. And probably they just say, okay, we need to start what is like the most standard thing we have, not thinking about all the world, but in our hands, like what is the most standard thing. And they say OCI, and we have people working on OCI and definition and stuff like that. So I think I think is when you drop in your idea, okay, this is my solution, my product, and after that you say like, what is the closest thing when I can start. Okay, and that was like the initial path. So I think it's not going to be like, again, I think there is a lot of stuff. I see like the conversation, and it's really early, so a lot of things
definitely
can happen. I think for in the Ortelius side, the key things we need to focus is going to be on the integration and the usability. If we are really easy, like we are not competing with anything, we're just here and you can integrate it, having benefit out of this is going to be great. And moreover, this is more easy to use that other stuff that maybe are more powerful. And in the technical, still we need to have like a good, a technical, a strong base. And I think that part is going to be using Hyperledge technology. So because we are talking about like security, we cannot have like, I don't know, like have a normal way to store and trust in the consistent on the origin of data. So I think that in the customer side are going to be that two things, and on the technical side, and we already have it. So we just need to stick together on that main idea, when we over the year are going to say, okay, we maybe can change it, maybe we can improve this, but never like living out on that main things that are going to be key to the people say, hey, this is like a good option, this is like something I want to join or maybe work with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting.
This is a really good and fun conversation, because this is when we are thinking about a product and a solution, that stuff that are more than just picking like the best technology, and really where like the company interest, like open source behavior, like trends and stuff like that. And there is a lot of we need to put in the table to hopefully take the best decision of how we are going to evolve.
Yeah, it's a decision. It's a pretty important decision point for us. You know, and if we have if we have a potential option to have a relationship with Red Hat, we really have to consider it very thoughtfully, even if it means we have to pivot some. And we should have a very clear understanding of why we might not go that direction, so the governing board has, you know, the ability to make a clear decision.
Oh, super interesting.
Yeah, we'll find out more when we you know, talk to them next week and dive into where they're at, and what they were thinking from their side, from Ortelius integrating
Is
into
that what you meant by an extraction layer? Instead of
what Tony meant by an abstraction layer is we write a layer.
Abstraction. Sorry, it was a bit fuzzy on the comms.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. An abstraction layer. Okay. Yeah, that makes
So we could sit on top of XRPL or the Postgres, or sit on top of you know, the OCI.
Yeah. Then you're not heavily invested in a piece of technology. You've got leverage, right? You've got more flexibility. Yeah.
You know, the database is plug and play then.
That's cool.
But again, you know, it still comes back to the federation as well, you know, where we may need to, and that's kind of where the OCI, I'm sorry, the abstraction layer comes into play, on the federation. Usually you have to do some sort of data transformation from something, let's say we have a SIG store signature and we need to transform that into more of a generic signature or something like that. That transformation is, we have our abstraction layer at the higher level that says this is a signature, that the way we view a signature. And then you have the SIG store data structure of what a signature looks like. And the abstraction layer will allow us to transform from one into the other.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah.
And
that's
Any other
really cool.
questions?
No.
Okay,
Alrighty.
it's gonna be a busy year, and this was supposed to be, our focus would be our adoption for this year, and I think we've have some interesting opportunities for that.
Yes, totally.
All right,
And,
guys.
One quick thing,
Yeah.
everybody just, I've been working with the Linux Foundation and GitHub about getting the sponsorship thing going, and so we can get everybody that's already done work paid. I'm trying to get that. I've sent in the paperwork, and I'm just waiting to hear back from GitHub on that front. So we're getting
Awesome
there.
news.
It's just taking longer dealing with two big companies, the Linux Foundation and GitHub.
What great news. Thank you.
So
Yeah.
we're getting there. But the one thing we definitely did decide was the crowdfunding piece of the Linux Foundation would not work. So
Yeah.
so we've had to pivot on that front. Just to get it structured.
I'm gonna write, we're gonna work on a blogathon, and one of my blogs is going to be how hard it is to set up a system where developers.
It's a good story, yes.
It is a great story. I would have thought
Yeah.
the Linux Foundation would have had our backs on that,
Yeah.
but they didn't.
So I know it sounds weird, but the one thing that I've seen on some of these the bounty programs is that you get paid in cryptocurrency instead of regular currency. So that may be something that we talk to like Ripple about and set it up that way. So you'd actually get paid in Ripple currency that you could then convert into your own local currency.
Yeah, that's
Or
smart.
leave it in there, let it skyrocket.
Yeah, that's smart. That's cool.
So just some ideas.
I really like it about the hunter, or we call it another place like a quest or whatever, but having this ability to anyone jump in, take something, deliver something, and want something. That is a really awesome idea.
Yeah.
Mm.
Alrighty, everybody.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Awesome.
See you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.